This is a review for the 2001 movie Joyride, which I will say is my personal favorite movie of all time that I've ever seen. Not just my favorite horror thriller movie, but my favorite movie of all, like ever, of any genre. I think it's pretty amazing. It was made in 2001, and it stars Steve Zahn, Paul Walker, Leelee Sobieski, and Jessica Bowman. So this movie, the the plot focuses around mainly around two brothers who are reunited with one another after 5 years. Fuller, who's played by Steve Zahn, and Lewis, who's played by Paul Walker. Paul Walker's character Lewis bails his brother Fuller out of prison in Utah. He's on a road trip, a cross-country road trip, to meet his girlfriend. What's her name? Venna, who's played by Leelee Sobieski. And he picks his brother up along the way to take him back out west. Or east, I don't remember where the brothers were from originally. I think I don't know, it doesn't really matter, but it's like they go on this cross country road trip. I think back east through Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, those states. And it's interesting for them being reunited for the first time after many years. They didn't see one another, I guess, because his brother Fuller was kind of embarking on a life of crime. But anyways, Fuller he buys this, I guess it's called like a CM handle, where you can most people who own them are truckers, where it's kind of like a radio that you can press the button and you can communicate with other truckers or people on the road. Fuller purchases one of those, and he encourages his brother to help him and play this prank on this random trucker they happen to find on the CM radio, who goes by the name of Rusty Nail. Lewis does this like fake female voice. He impersonates this really hot woman, and he talks with Rusty Nail, and he convinces him he's a woman. The two brothers have a pretty good laugh about that, but they get disconnected. There's some kind of like interference or something. But later that night, the two brothers are checking into the hotel, this kind of sleazy motel, and Rusty Nail comes back on the line and says that he wants to meet up with Candy Cane, as that's the name that Lewis gives for the imaginary woman he's pretending to be, Candy Cane. And he agrees to meet up, except he gives Rusty Nail the room next door to him, which is being occupied by this really grumpy old man who they have an altercation with earlier. He's a real jerk to Fuller, and they decide to kind of get some revenge on him. So, like at midnight, Rusty Nail shows up at this grumpy dude's motel room next to theirs. They listen in, and they hear a bunch of commotion all of a sudden right after he opens the door, and then like total silence, and they don't know what happened. But they wake up the next morning, and there are cops all over the place, and they find out that this guy was found with his jaw ripped out lying by the highway, and that freaks them out. Eventually they get out of town like right after that, and Rusty Nail contacts them for a third time. He finds out that it was a prank, and that he's not too happy. I'm not going to spoil the rest of it, but most of the rest of the film is composed of Rusty Nail stalking them. There's kind of two main, right after Rusty Nail discovers that they played a joke on him, they have an encounter. They manage to escape him, but then quite some time later, he pops back into their life when they least expect it, and it's pretty intense. And by that, the second time that they get reunited with Rusty Nail, Lewis's girlfriend, Venna, is with them. So that adds to a lot of the suspense and trouble. But like I've said, this was a great film. The main the acting was really good. Paul Walker, he did a great job. He plays the more serious, mature of the two brothers. It's it's kind of sad to view him in this film um, after following his death about a year and a half ago. It's kind of sad a little bit watching that, but it doesn't take away from the greatness of the film. Steve Zahn does a great job playing his younger brother. He's a very very funny actor, very humorous, adds a lot of life to the character. Um, Leelee Sobieski, who plays Lewis's girlfriend, does a great job as Venna. She's very pretty. And on an interesting side note, she and Steve Zahn, who in this film in Joyride plays her boyfriend's brother, the two of them appeared in another horror film I saw, a more recent one titled Night Train. She actually plays a total psychopath on a train who actually kills Steve Zahn's character in this one. That is kind of funny comparing these two movies. In this movie, they're very close. They become very close friends, and that other one she murders his character. But anyways, though, back to Joyride. The guy who plays Rusty Nail, I'm forgetting his name. I think it's Mark Levine. You never actually see his face, which adds to a lot of the mystery. You just hear his voice, and he has a very powerful, a perfect voice for a character like Rusty Nail. Um, and the characters are all very relatable. The way they interact with one another is very interesting, and they're likable too. You really feel a lot for them, and you're really wishing that they end up okay at the end. Rusty Nail is a really amazing villain, I thought, because he isn't just like your typical horror film bad guy. He's very, very intelligent, very, very manipulative. He just finds kind of devises these perfect schemes to terrorize these guys, and just when it seems like throughout the movie, just when they think they've finally gotten rid of him, he finds some genius way to come back in. He's a very very smart guy. He makes their life, after they play that prank on him, he makes their life hell, and he's a really really good villain. He's very vengeful. That's what adds to a lot of his character. I really enjoy the theme of the cross-country road trip. There's something very interesting to me about much of this movie takes place in when they're going down the road in the car, usually isolated country roads. You see a lot of really beautiful sights throughout the movie. They go through a lot of deserts and mountain areas, and so some really great settings there. And it kind of adds to the creepiness and intensity because they're isolated on the road, kind of on the rural highway roads, far away from anyone who can help them. The movie is extremely suspenseful. There's a lot of great chases, a lot of great car chases, a lot of super intense car chases throughout. Rusty Nail has this enormous like truck, not just like a typical truck, but like one of those like gigantic trucks that carries all that cargo and stuff that you'll see on the highways. He just has a huge one, and it's super fast, it's super powerful. These two guys, Fuller and Lewis, they just have this dinky, beaten up little crappy slow car that is really no match for Rusty Nail's huge truck. And the ending is really, I won't give it away, but it is super super intense and suspenseful. These two brothers are kind of in a race against time to save Lewis's girlfriend, and it's very very intense. Rusty Nail, it's another one of his evil planned out schemes that he's come up with, and the boys are trying their very best to put a stop to it. There's also a lot of really good humor in this movie. Like I said, Steve Zahn is very very funny. He adds a lot of humor to the movie. His character, he's always has some funny like new trick or scheme up his sleeve. Even though his the initial trick he comes up with isn't doesn't end up being too good a thing for the brothers. Kind of gets them in a lot of trouble. But there's also one of the other scenes that really made me laugh a lot was this scene right after the brothers, they briefly get taken into custody by the cops after they admit to the cops investigating about their prank. After that one old guy who was next to them in the motel gets his jaw ripped out, and this sheriff just like is he has them in his office and he's just cussing them out endlessly. He's like to the Fuller, it's like, you got out of jail what, yesterday? And the two of them are just like looking down at the ground, humiliated out of their minds. And it's probably one of the most humorous scenes of the film. That was one that I really liked. But this movie just seems to me like the perfect combination of suspense, of horror, of good humor. It's a really, really amazing film, in my opinion. Like I've said, it's my favorite one that I've seen. But I saw it for the first time about I want to say like 5 years ago. I got it as a Christmas present, and since then I've watched it. I've lost count of how many times I've rewatched it, just because it's a really great film. But I would definitely recommend it to anybody who likes horror thriller films. It's a real gem. Thanks for watching.